is that sort of stuff that you consume. I've seen one guy go on the back of the counter, and it was just to throw something away, and then another guy went on the back of the counter, but he was a bartender. He's using the whole thing, plus there's another guy sleeping upstairs. So he was just using the whole thing.
So one reason, if you saw someone walking on the side of the road so slow that it was a joke, if you're a police officer, you're gonna ask them, where are you coming from, why you're this tired? And that's a legitimate question anyone would ask. But if you're a policeman and if you have name tags on people, such as persons of interest that are in a database, they'll go to more extreme extents. And if they ever turn on the citizens as a war on American soil, then you can definitely have your name flagged if you wear camo outside, and it's considered a rally, because then the FBI has permission to snipe you and your name's on a list forever. Over my right shoulder is a vehicle that if you get caught in, you're gonna owe $200 or bare minimum of $125 just for them pulling that up. And that means if anyone around you that you're talking to has to have that vehicle sent out, then you're going to be paying for it. Over my left shoulder is a vehicle used for collecting hundreds of dollars of bills if you're found caught being traveled with someone you know inside of one. In Florida, their HIV limit for students getting tested without parents even knowing about it is 100% if a bill is passed. I had my entire back flake off because I got sun poisoning, and it all came off inside of the school, and then the nurses saw it and sent me home. If I had STDs and the nurses didn't send me home and they tried keeping me there for the entire day, fixing all my back that had flaked off onto the ground and around them while they rubbed oil on it, that might be a treatment of holistics, one of which no one knows if they're even doing a proper examination. In any case, who would pay for that? If your parents had to get you driven in that yellow vehicle, then they're gonna have to pay $200 just to see you. If you're in school and they're treating an STD without any disclosure, that's a real serious, which is being passed in Florida despite anyone voting of a parent who has a kid in school. I'm not a violent person, but if I was resembling the guy in Assassin's Creed, him in the storyline Castlevania, they've completed each of their video games without dying. And so them versus Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, which would come back, probably Scorpion, but who would win? Who knows? I bought a $30 safe, and it is inside of a bank, and you get an extra room for $30 to just do math or whatever you want. And there's like, I'm like, what do you put in these? Obviously you can't put liquid, because enclosing it inside this metal chest is gonna make it look like a torpedo being shot underwater whenever you plug it in. Also, if you get flooded, then that would be a scenario if someone puts some liquid in it, because you're walking around all the time with basically Molotov cocktails. If you're daisy chaining to electronic components, and liquid can be flammable. So the reason I mention this is because one thing more important than just one coin of silver is if you have an entire bowl of coins of silver versus one geode, you just have one crystal amethyst, versus if you have a geode with like 30 crystal amethysts, then obviously that would be worth more money. But you can't pay any rocks or metal for any money for 25 cents at a grocery store, even if you think that it's worth $40 on the internet. So unless you find a trader, which means someone who handles raw material for sale, then you can't sell what you just have, other than putting it inside like a $30 box in your bank in case anything goes wrong. Then you can find a trader. And this was just one step inside of a giant staircase with people, like how big will their foot have to be, where if this was the size of a normal stair. It's almost like Thanos if he had a glove that was the size of a building. How accurately would the gem positions be to each of his knuckles if they were straight? And
In places that serve stuff that you consume, I've seen one guy go in the back of the counter, and it was just to throw something away, and then another guy went in the back of the counter, but he was a bartender, so he was just using the whole thing. Plus, there's another guy sleeping upstairs, so he was just using the whole thing. The other difference is if there's a rock and then it starts moving versus you running into a really strong rock. All the images on the internet of people on the outsides in funny places, even if they're just acting, those are legitimate places where anything could be if you weren't looking.
Just like a cornfield that has a shaping of corn smashed over in it. I saw a signal in this dirt, and it looked like a compressed piece of metal that was pressed down and left like a stamp. And right beside it, I saw some jug that looked like in a scary movie. If it was at nighttime and you were running, you'd get really scared if you saw that right after you saw the impression in the dirt. And then there's a ferret dragged out like a piece of tire on the road, and then just a dead bird that looked like it got sniped in the face on the side of the road. Because other than its face, its whole body was perfectly normal. And so I had to balance between that and crossing over between traffic and trucks if they're really wide. If they're an inch off, it doesn't matter. They're gonna accidentally hit you. And this is how close the sidewalk is in this scenario with dead animals on either side, and you're dodging them as well. Split second decision. It's just a fact of the matter that both of those things are real and actually happened to people that you came across, and one guy you didn't know, and then had the scar on his face, and another little girl you didn't know had the same issue, except she was unscathed. Just like in the movie The Ring, how shit appears in holes, and for no odd reason. So there's like this little girl, and she almost fell into a well, and earlier she fell into a hole. And the water.
Okay.
Nice cash.
$12.80. Did you want a bag?
Yeah.
Out of 15.
And so she's different from Jake that got shot in the face, but they're both that happened. But only Jake's face stuck with him because he couldn't see if someone fell down the hole.
Right? There's 2. There's 20. Receipt. You're all set then.
And because you can't see if someone almost fell down a hole, but its life-taking experience is no different than someone getting shot in the face, and that's the first time you ever seen someone have a bullet in their face. That was a scar. But the same difference is equal, except for the person who is not fallen down the hole is unscathed, yet their experience could be that much more scary. Is something that isn't an imprint, that is invisible in a digital scale, if it is something equal and opposite, but the same at a life-taking experience. So they said that the fertilizer is going to go out, and no one in the farming industry is going to be able to have ingredients to make, and anything that doesn't have one ingredient can't get shipped out, because our whole community thrives off of not being a commune, which is when you can or cannot do things. And if the whole area was just one giant program, like a business that was one world government, then they would be able to do anything they wanted, such as treat the whole thing as if it was just one product. And if you weren't in the club, then you couldn't do any on-time delivery, which means back ordering would be impossible, for keeping something from wouldn't have been able to be made in the first place. Inside a virus or a vaccine, if you had an animal part in it, like a lizard, and Another sick trick. The science community connected the reptilian brain to turning people into lizards with the sequence in the genes that spread the common cold. In a million years, it would be like Mortal Kombat, the reptile ninja race. Our Ninja Turtles made into whatever gene your animals are spliced with inside any sequencing. That's a part of you. It's just like the radiator of an engine to a robot. It's an actual dynamic. And so is a robot that is the size of a chicken. And they would know if they had that in their be a body. As like their muscle tissue or something. Hashtag robot chicken or something.